I'm learning English with Kane. I've studied English with him for 2 years. So I watch movies and watch some videos. I'm reading also. I love Harry Potter. I start with Harry Potter because
That's
it's an easy book, I guess. So,
which
and I
is
love
funny
the
because
story.
before the session I started Harry Potter in Portuguese. So we're
Yeah.
doing the same in different languages.
So I've enjoyed reading a lot. So yes, I guess I've been improving. So I think it's I think it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
But I don't use other ways like
Mm-hmm.
beyond these ones.
Yeah, that's ones. I mean, these are already enough, right? You're doing a lot.
Yeah,
You're having like an input for everything. You know, you're doing reading, you're doing writing, you're doing listening and
listening.
speaking in the
Yeah,
session.
yeah,
So there's
yeah.
everything. I see what you mean. I mean, I feel like even me, like sometimes I find a word and I feel like, I've heard it before. So I kind of know it, but I've never actually studied the word.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it happens. But if you ask me for like any tips on how to learn those words subconsciously, then I can't really answer that because I don't know. Just I feel like it just
I guess
happens.
not.
Like it just happens. It's personal. It's also like depending on like your brain exposure as well, like how you expose to the language. For example, I can tell you here there's like a huge Chinese community. Sometimes I walk in the street, I hear people speaking Chinese. Perhaps it's like a word I don't know, but then the next time I see it written somewhere, and I'm like, oh, I've heard this one before. I've read it somewhere, right? But I've never really studied. So perhaps it happens, but it's not something you learn. It's just something that you get, then that happens,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I can't really answer that. But what I can tell you, for example, is perhaps like look at the patterns. For example, I remember for Spanish, I used to do, for example, all the words ending in ty in English would be ta
Mm.
in Spanish. Perhaps like there's something that can help you, or in Portuguese it would be dad or
Mm-hmm.
DE. So probably
Mm-hmm.
something that can help you, right? Sometimes I'll make these patterns. They're mental patterns, right? You just think, okay, whichever word ending with like ty would be translated as DADE in Portuguese at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we
Mm-hmm.
have exceptions, as in every other language, but at least you can start making your own like list of words. And also like always remember words coming from Latin and Greek, they're always easier to learn because obviously
Mm.
they have the same origins and they don't change them much. Like
Mm.
politics, economics, republic, those are words like
Mm-hmm.
talk about philosophy. The word philosophy is like nearly the same in every language. So perhaps they can help.
Mm.
The first one is stay hungry for knowledge. Obviously, I mean, basically what I was doing this morning, I was basically to nurture these like appetite for curiosity, for knowledge, right? Always being alert, always being on the ball and ready to learn more things. Like even I was saying, even when I'm in the street and people just talk to me in a different language, I'm always very curious. Like, what language was it? Can you tell me a few sentences? Can you tell me how to greet in that language? Like that's also like how I make most friends as well. You just like approach people. You obviously you try to come across as a friendly person, and you just ask them, about tips. And so that is why stay hungry for knowledge basically just means always be ready to learn new things, not only about the language itself, but also about the culture. So like one of the questions, like why did I start learning Tagalog? Obviously, there was these students in my class, right? He convinced me to learn it. But then after I started learning a bit of Tagalog, I actually got a job in translations from during quarantine. There were like a lot of TV shows from the Philippines that were coming out on YouTube, and they were really famous. They were a hit back then. And I was working as a translator, not from Tagalog to English, but from English to Spanish and Portuguese. So obviously, it gave me a job knowing Tagalog, not the fact that I knew the language, but the fact that I was open to the culture. So sometimes it's not just a matter of the language, but also being open to new worlds and new traditions. So that's my first tip. Second tip, cultivate a cultural passion. Obviously, that again, the same thing as like being open to new cultures. If you study the language, you should also be aware of the cultural differences, right? For example, if I speak with a Chinese person, I would not behave perhaps in the same way as I would speak to an Italian friend, right? So sometimes you need to use like some hierarchies. Of course, like in Chinese, we have different ways to address people. So perhaps also like understand the culture, like not being judgmental, perhaps like being more open-minded. For example, like if before studying Chinese, a lot of people may think like why you want to study Chinese, or perhaps if you want to learn some languages that are whose countries are nowadays in conflict. So perhaps people may think, oh, that's not why you're learning this language, right? So obviously always be open to like a new cultural trends, but also being open to building a bridge between different cultures and different languages. And that is why we're learning language. Because if you speak languages, there's always like these, there was this thing by Nelson Mandela, is also on my LinkedIn profile, which basically says, if you speak a language that I understand, you will get to my head and you will get to my brain. But if you speak a language, if you speak my mother tongue, my mother language, then you will get to my heart. And that was probably like one of the sentences that probably even motivated me to learn more language, because I was like, why am I always the one whose language other people should speak? Why can't I be the one who's opening to the other languages and learning other languages in order to be able to speak to them? So that is probably why, you know, when I was younger, perhaps I was not thinking about it. I was just like, okay, English is fine, is enough. And then I realized with time, I should probably, you know, be open, broaden my horizons. And that's what I did. Then the third tip is craft a linguistic lifestyle. Right. Okay. So that is the one I was anticipating beforehand, which basically says I always say, make language your life and make your life a language. So everything you do in life is always a good opportunity to learn a language. I used to put like sticky notes on everything in my house, and I had like the translation of each like appliance of the house in different languages. So every time I opened the fridge, I was looking at the word for fridge in different languages, and I would just, you know, try to memorize it, try to repeat it, and that was helping me. Then my mom was like, "No, we can't do this anymore," and we had to take notes out. But definitely that's something probably nowadays I don't use the sticky notes anymore, but definitely I use, you know, obviously the knowledge, because you've learned it. So everything is in your head, right? So if you craft a linguistic lifestyle, that means that everything you do in life will be related to language. So even what I'm doing right now, like, you know, I got to speak at least 3 languages today with you, and the meeting is not even started, right? So basically, if you craft a linguistic lifestyle, that means that everything you do in life would be related to language, and everything related to language will be part of your life. And that was my third tip. Thank you.
So the tips. I like the idea of your mother cleaning up all of these post-its in your house. Okay, I genuinely wish we had more time, because I think we could do this for like 3 hours. You know, we could have all of these questions. Everyone's so curious.
I got on my personal website. It started as a personal portfolio as an assignment at my university during my master's degree. It's called Languages with Sal, and actually that's my handle on Instagram and TikTok as well. That's where I upload my videos where I teach languages. Well, I started teaching Chinese, but I'm uploading some content in English as well, like different levels and in different languages. Absolutely. So you also like have my self-introduction in 16 languages if you want to go have a look. So that's my website. If you want to learn languages, if you go here on the drop-down menu where it says languages, you can find the table of content with all the languages and my translations that I'm working on or that I've worked on in the past. But if you're learning English or if you're learning Portuguese, there are different levels as well. Mostly the English one, I'm working on C1 and C2 courses, because online you can find all the English material up to B2. But then when it comes to like C1, C2 level, there's little material, little resources you can find online. So that's what I'm working on currently. So if you click on C1, you can find like all my classes or the grammar points you should know and everything I do in class, because I'm actually working in person for a C1, C2 course in an English academy. So like I'm putting all my material, all the things I use in class. Obviously I hope I can do more with Portuguese. And I got old vocabulary, but obviously it's coming next. the division in different classes, in different courses and different levels as well. So perhaps I can also start working on my Portuguese section. But definitely for English, for Dutch, and for Spanish, you already have the levels in case you're interested like in learning those languages as well. But yeah, so Languages with Sal would be my handle. So that's the way you can reach out to me on Instagram, TikTok, and then my personal website, where you can, the website is more complete in a way, because like you can see all the material I use in class, and also like the apps I was recommending earlier. They're actually if you go to like English or Swahili, for example, you would see the app being recommended anyway, because obviously the language transfer, the app I was recommending before, it doesn't contain obviously all the languages. It only has like Greek, German, Arabic, and Swahili. So very few languages. But again, if you're interested in German, for example, there's a really good and complete language course that perhaps you may engage with. So yeah, I would say Languages with Sal, that's the handle to go for.
I wasn't wrong, was I? Like, I can imagine people watching this back with a notepad and a pen, taking notes of all the things that he said. It was absolutely incredible. So thank you very much, Salvatore. If you've liked this video, please follow our Facebook page, follow our website. You can get all the information about future sessions, all the things that we offer at Language for Life. And of course, you can also find links to follow Salvatore. Thank you very much. And join us again for another special edition of Language Exchange Connections. Bye.
Oh